Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Today I want to talk a little bit more about masks. We're going to talk about mask wearing today. Let me get that down a little bit. I can't get this to work right? Part of it's the hotel thing. So, this is again kind of sort of based on a Twitter conversation. You know, someone talked about being a mask centrist on my feed, and, you know, I mentioned that last January, 2020, I went through a century of data on masks. And I did. You know, this was before it was a big deal. You know, there were actually people, remember there were people running around with shirts that said, "I love science, I love coronavirus," making fun of people wearing masks. This is last January and February. And, you know, I was kind of involved in this because, you know, I associate with people who look at potential disasters, preppers and stuff. And one of the things that we looked at is this virus going to be a real deal, like a world killer, a civilization killer? And we weren't actually expecting an authoritarian nightmare like we got, but we were taking a look at it. And I predicted some events. I predicted, for example, that there would be fights in grocery stores, shortages of durable goods, and stuff. You know, the gas shortage never happened, which in retrospect I should have actually thought about because people aren't going anywhere. But I wasn't really expecting the same. I wasn't expecting government lockdowns. I was expecting people to hole up in their neighborhoods and stuff and not travel as much. But I did a bunch of research on masks, and I looked at a century of data. And they never worked out. Okay, this whole idea, the theory that you wear a mask to protect others from you, that never worked out. It never worked out. It worked out so poorly that they actually changed the reason for masking by healthcare workers and police officers, first responders, what we call now first responders. They changed the rationale to you wear masks to protect yourself from obnoxious environments. That never worked out. In studies, none of this has ever worked out. The research does not support mask wearing as particularly effective in doing anything at all, with a couple of exceptions that are gross material exceptions. For example, if you have a piece of food in your teeth, then a mask will prevent that piece of food from getting into someone's open wound while you're in a surgery. Gross material. Gross doesn't mean gross as in ew, it means size. Okay? We're not talking about bacteria, we're not talking about virus, we're not talking about infectious agents. We're talking about literally gobbets of phlegm or food in your mouth or droplets of blood from a surgery getting into your mouth. That's what we're preventing here. That's it. That's about as far as you can go with masks. And I looked at the studies, I looked at the research, and I responded with this, you know. If it makes you feel better to wear a mask in certain situations, cool. There's not enough evidence to support a mandate. There's not enough evidence to support habitual mask wearing. And now, hand washing. Not goop, not sanitizing goop, but actual hand washing and fresh air social distancing, those actually have some evidence. Hand washing especially has more evidence than pretty much anything else we have. Clean clothes helps, of course, with disease control, but we're not necessarily at the level in which we're talking. So I get a response from a guy. His name is Dan. I'm not going to give you his Twitter handle because I don't want to call him out or anything. He did a very good job. He's polar opposite from me on this. But he mostly did a very good job of challenging me or allowing me to challenge his assumptions. His first response is that he appreciates that I still cite some mitigation techniques despite not believing in the value of masks. he says it's not an attitude he sees often. And that actually, I want to question that first. Okay, I'm going to have to do 2 videos about this because this is going to take a while. I want to question that. How many people do you know who say masks don't do anything, who also say hand washing doesn't do anything? How many people actually say that? Because this is my challenge to Dan. How many people actually say that there are no other mitigation techniques, his words, that do anything? Because I don't think this is that uncommon a viewpoint. I just think that people don't often get into real conversations about this. Now, he also comes back with probability. Probabilistically, it's worth wearing a mask because there's a common sense explanation of how mask wearing might move the needle a little bit by catching some droplets. I have to respond to this one, but it's actually really difficult to do because what we're dealing with here at this point is logic and faith, not any demonstrable chain of events or facts or what people like to call the holy science, okay? Studies, research, anything. It makes sense that if you wear a mask, you will not expel spittle, okay? It makes sense, but it also doesn't, you know, at this point we're into territory of the guy in Colorado, the primary care physician or whoever he was who decided that double masking was good because it makes an obstacle course for the virus. You know, common sense. Well, the common sense is that you're assuming a mechanism without looking at results. And the results from a century of studies is that mask wearing doesn't work, doesn't prevent the spread of infectious viral diseases. There you go. So all of this common sense, how it might move the needle a little bit, catching some droplets, there's no probability there to make it probabilistically worth it. This is the problem I'm having. And, you know, I did respond to this, and I responded very simply that probability in this case would require actual evidence of effectiveness. And I'm not trying to be harsh, but with a century of data, that's not the case, okay? The problem with a cost-benefit analysis in terms of masks is that you have to have a benefit axis. There's no benefit axis. It's not there. And they've moved the goalposts. And, you know, this becomes a very belief-oriented thing. And this guy here, as polite as he is, he's working with a belief-oriented set of assumptions. Okay? He didn't come at this from research. He came at this from authority says. And it makes sense to him. It makes common sense. He sees the rationale. He likes the idea. This is the faith-based part, you know. I'm not trying to be mean. Humans have faith for a reason, okay? Pragmatism is actually the way that we interact with the world, okay? Pragmatism being the it works, we don't know why kind of behavior. And that's how humans operate. So, you know, there's plenty of evidence. I noted that there's another cost-benefit analysis here, and that is that the mask wearing reduces social distancing and basic hygiene measures. It does, in fact, do that. You are less likely to fully wash if you're wearing a mask. This is proven. We have data to back this up. But this is also not only, it's functionally present. It's necessary. If you're wearing a mask, you're not washing your face. And yes, people do wash their face. People brush their teeth after they snack. All these behaviors, basic hygiene behaviors, have gone out the window. People don't wash their hands anymore because they use sanitizer. They don't want to go into the bathroom and actually wash their hands because it's a community space. It's a space where other people do things and touch things, so you don't wash your hands anymore. You just use a drop of hand sanitizer and do this, which is not using 2 teaspoons of hand sanitizer and actually washing. Doesn't work. So we also have adequate evidence that mask wearing reduces the social distancing factors, and I know one of the examples I gave is that I was in a big box store in my travels yesterday as I filmed this, and stopped at the door by the receipt checker. You know, there's the person, Walmart's, Target's, whatever, I don't go into Target, Costco, the receipt checker, who checks the receipt. Okay, this girl is wearing a mask. Great, but she's also in your face, touching your hand to grab your receipt, putting her hand in your bag. She's right up on you. This is not 6 feet social distancing. This is not even 2 feet social distancing. We're looking at that whole 12 to 18 inches. And it depends on what you're doing. If you're hand carrying bags, then it's really right up in your face because she's looking in your bags. But she's wearing a mask. And if you call her on it, which I do and did, the response is, I'm wearing a mask. Okay, so Dan, let's talk about the cost-benefit analysis of wearing a mask. I'm not even going to get into rebreathing toxins or sanitary issues of wearing a mask, and they do exist. And there are people, for example, with mold toxicity who actually expel particles, nanoparticles at this point, that if they rebreathe are infecting themselves, making their own condition worse. Okay? Very hard to explain, very weird area of medicine, does exist, is real, actual science. Okay? So there are downsides to wearing masks. The only upside is that it makes you feel better. And, you know, why? You need to look at the history of mask wearing, which we'll do in a moment.